So you just have to remember, look for your sunlight. Guys, do as I've always told you. If you don't know it, turn your paper so that your sun is on the right and you see what you've learned in class and how we drew it. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Your paper turns. Okay, let's look at this real quick, a luminosity chart. Luminosity charts tell you the amount of light on the moon's surface, and it goes through. So the first thing that I always do is I look for the number that is closest to 100. So I'm going through, and I'm sitting here at 99.8. So this is going to be my closest to 100%, which means it's going to be my full moon. Okay? Then I'm going to look for something that is close to 0. And I actually have one here, and I have one here. So both of these would be a new moon. We have 2 new moons in this month. Okay? So we have new moon, full moon. If I am going from new to full, I am waxing. So when I go in and I look, I know that if I'm waxing, I'm looking for the one that's going to be closest to 50%, because 50% is going to be my quarter. 51 is closer than 41, so this is going to be my first quarter. If I'm going from a full moon to a new moon, then I'm going to be waning because I'm taking the light off. I'm looking and my numbers are decreasing. So again, I'm going to come here and I'm going to look for numbers that are closest to 50. When I look at 54, I've got 4. 50 minus 54 is 4. Or I've got, say, 43. 50 minus 43 is 7. So this one here is actually going to be representing my third quarter. Okay. So then as I go through this, then I can go back and look. If I'm going from a new moon to a first quarter, then all of these are going to be my waxing crescents. Here, if I'm going from the third quarter to the new moon, all of these are going to be my waning crescent. They're less than 50%. From a first quarter, my numbers are going higher to get to my full moon. So then all of these would be my waxing gibbous. And then from a full moon, my numbers start to go down, but they're still above 50%. So all of these here are going to be my waning gibbous. Okay. So this would be how you would read a luminosity chart and trying to figure out what day a new moon, full moon, or something like that is looking at. Look at your percentages. I gave you percentages when we talked about it on here, so you're looking for something that's close to it. It is not always going to be 0%, and it's not always going to be 100 or 50. You're going to have to look for numbers that are closest to it and make your determination. So the same thing all of this can also be represented as in a graph as you did in your project. And so that graph you might see, and so you're going to have to go and look, where's my 100% on the graph, where's my 0% on the graph, where are my ones that are closest to 50% on the graph. Okay? So if you do all of those, then you should be able to answer any questions there. Let's take a quick look. When we are talking about tides, let's just use this one real quick. Remember, there's a couple of things that you need to know about tides. Tides, if they are all in the straight line, straight is equal to spring tides. A straight line is also 180 degrees. All right? So that means that this new moon and this full moon give me the spring tides. Spring tides means high or higher high tides and lower low tides. All right? And then we have neap. So we're going to come here. Remember I told you neap and 90. So this is like a 90-degree angle. These are my neap tides, where the sun is canceling out that of the moon and your tides are more even. So neap tides equals more even or equal tide heights. And we have this at our third quarter, and we have it at our first quarter. All right. So neap and 90, N and N, straight and spring, S and S. Typically we have 2 high tides and 2 low tides equals 1 day. So a high tide to a high tide is 12 hours, and a low tide to a low tide is 12 hours. Actually, guys, I'm going to tell you it's more like 12 and a half. Otherwise, we would have the same time every day as I've talked to you. We just tend to round it up. Okay, so you've got 12 hours and 12 hours. So if I'm going to go from a high tide to a low tide, then it's going to be 6 hours, or halfway between. And so we did the tide graphs. You've seen tide graphs. You know what tide graphs look like. So if you were shown one, you should be able to figure out the information for there. But that's all you need to know about tides. Remember that the full moon gives us the highest high tides and the lowest low tides. Because even though you have the gravity of the sun here pulling and the moon pulling over here on the earth, we end up with the moon being closer, and therefore its gravity is a little stronger, being pulled this way, and we end up with higher high tides on the side with the moon that is full versus the side where the moon is a new. All right, if you have any questions, please see me. Thank you. Good luck on your test.